quarterback.
Oh, there's a goal. It bounces
Oh,
right.
at least I thought he was gonna until he blew it.
This look at the MLB Trade Deadline is brought to you by Aura. Online security should be of interest to everyone. Too often do I hear about people becoming victims of identity theft. People whose information is readily accessible on the internet regardless of how well they protect it. It's hard to deal with the onslaught of data brokers. They make their money selling your info to robocallers, spammers, and harvesters. Which is why Aura is a useful asset to me. It identifies data brokers exposing your info and can submit opt-out requests on your behalf. There are a bajillion loops and turns to go through if you do this alone. But Aura makes it super easy. Not just with this, but with potential malware and information available on the dark web as well. And they update you about potential leaks fast. Aura also isn't just about information security. It's also antivirus software, a VPN, password manager, parental controls, and much more. Best of all, it's available at one low price. Still not convinced? Just try it out. Go to aura.com/utree to get a 14-day free trial and see if your info's been compromised. Internet security is paramount, especially in the age of commerce. Aura might not be what you want, but it's something I feel you need. Now on to the video. We have a new king at the top of the AL East. Long had we assumed that the Rays would be running away with it, but birds from the inner harbor swoop in and poach the flopping fish on the pier. The Orioles are now masters of the domain. Their youth continuing their emergence onto the scene with a bullpen to boot. Now adding Shintaro Fujinami, who's somewhat rebounded in Oakland after a disastrous start. However, the Orioles need starting pitching. They lack high-end power and reinforcements from within aren't truly ready. Time is winding down. And there are intriguing options on the market if you're willing to pay a price. At the harbor, they find their catch. His name is Jack Flaherty, and he didn't cost anything significant. Just a fringe pitcher and a middle infield prospect who was surplus goods. The trade is more symbolic than anything. The days of misery are all but over, and the playoffs await. Hopefully. I should correct myself. The days of misery are all but over on the field. On Utah Street, it's off to Gulag if you question the almighty Angelo State. Their lead announcer, Kevin Brown, has been taken away in the middle of the night for the most dastardly propaganda. He talked about stats! They had the graphics ready! The program director approved it! My 60-year-old child cried endlessly for days! Seriously, this is it? There's gotta be something else to this suspension, right? You might be wondering where Tampa Bay is in this whole equation. There's a problem with them, which you could see coming if you were paying attention. If a majority of the pitching staff is injured, you're going to deal with a lot of pain. Since their torrid streak to start the year, the Rays have been hovering around 500. The peloton of competitors have caught up to them, and they need to counter lest they be left in the dust. Like most things the Rays do, their move is outside of the box. In Cleveland, Aaron Savale is having an excellent season, and the Guardians are too cursed to fully take advantage of it. Rays will acquire him in an effort to shore up a glaring issue, but the cost will be great. One of their top hitting prospects in Kyle Manzardo was going the other way. But it's what needs to be done to finally get over the rainbow. Spoiler time, Shane McClanahan is probably not going to pitch again this season. I wouldn't hold your breath on it happening soon. Toronto's strategy at the deadline was simple. Why travel around and waste time when you can get everything at the same store? Walmart is successful for a reason. One-stop shop for low, low prices. The St. Louis Cardinals are their Walmart. They'll pick up a few necessities, a Paul DeJong, a Jordan Hicks for the bullpen, and a Genesis Cabrera just because they can. All it'll cost them is the currency of prospects. They'll put it on their credit card during cash back and call it a day. Yes, the Blue Jays are still incredibly frustrating, why do you ask? Streakiness abound and it will continue. Until Bo Bichette went down with injury. Good news for you, it's an insanely lucky break. He's only going to be out for the short term. Celebrate that while you finally beat Boston this year. Will the Jays ever consistently play up to their potential? At least they have a chance to, unlike other teams in their division. I remember a time when the Yankees were feared. They smothered over all of us by buying everything that moved, and their constant winning was insufferable. The bad news is that they're still insufferable, but for very different reasons. To be fair, they have a point this time. The executive branch has gone entirely apathetic. Half-ass solutions to problems caused by previous half-ass solutions. When the hitting core with how ballyhooed it was is completely useless without Aaron Judge, it's become the equivalent of Anthony Rizzo. He's become hot garbage. And you'd be too if you were forced to play with a concussion for months. The whole season has become undercooked chicken parm. Disheveled and belligerent is Domingo Germán being forced to take a leave of absence due to alcohol abuse. But the Yankees have a plan. Like with Herman, they'll put a drunken team in a sauna. They made a trade. For the first time since early March, a deal was done. Are you ready for the haul they received? Yeah? You are? Keenan Middleton and Spencer Howard. How enthralling. No, Yankees fans, you got your reward already. Josh Donaldson's out long term. The rest of us feel their plight.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
The Red Sox formula is surprisingly predictable. Be a maddeningly inconsistent team. Still be within striking distance of a wildcard spot. But then rattle off some impressive wins before the deadline. Rally the fan base to think you could be something. Something more than the mid that we believe. There are some holes to fill for a playoff push. But then you solve the equation. Doing pretty much nothing but find a random player who struggled and call it an addition. Luis Arias does have some pedigree, but he couldn't find a place in Milwaukee's lineup. The Brewers! So shit at hitting you'd think they were shadow boxing. This is supposed to be the Kike Hernandez replacement? No wonder why I have no faith in them this year. If only Boston were in the AL Comedy Central. Then they'd be competing for the division and not even break a sweat doing so. The Central is an outright joke. It's not a question of who wants to win it, but who accidentally stumbles into a home playoff series at the end of the year. The only team that didn't sell in this division was Minnesota. And even then it was a lateral move of acquiring Dylan Floro for Jorge Lopez. And it somehow isn't enough to break away as they went on a rough skid around the deadline. Cleveland is somehow still clinging for dear life, which says more about Minnesota than them. The Guardians know that this year is fucked. And even more so now that Shane Bieber's out until September. They sold off Aaron Savale and Josh Bell, even if Bell wasn't doing shit for them at the plate. Ahmed Rosario's gone too in return for the show of what once was Thor. The pitching staff somehow got worse with that move. Chicago's plan though? Sell, but don't sell everything. They don't want to go through yet another massive tank right after a massive tank. Recognize that they failed in a ton of decisions in this rebuild. Too cheap to capitalize on their talent? That's a foolish endeavor. They'll keep Dylan Cease around to struggle further, thank you. Liam Hendricks would be as well, but he needs Tommy John. Detroit and Kansas City are in the basement just selling off whatever pieces they can scrounge off the floor. The Tigers had a good one to flip in Michael Lorenzen, but Erod? Best not discuss that one for their sanity. Texas and Houston, rivals in the art of baseball once again. The Rangers have led pace throughout the season, finally breaking through the walking mediocrity moniker. But the Astros are slowly creeping up on them in the distance, seeking to defend their title. Despite the relentless pace, both have a need for elite starting pitching. And both are due to injury. Houston's without McCullers, Garcia, and Urquidy. Texas is without their prizes in Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi. However, both won't be competing with each other for top prizes, but get them from the same location. Queens. Texas, in their quest to overcome little brother syndrome, seeks a heterochromatic legend to join their ranks. Max Scherzer is theirs, and might be next season as well. Jordan Montgomery is another excellent addition to the rotation that can use more power. Plus Aroldis Chapman for the holy shit he can break the radar gun velocity. Now, only if the injuries to Jonah Heim and Josh Young aren't long term. They'll need them too, since Houston is bringing an old legend home. Justin Verlander is back after a short vacation. An elite veteran presence for a starting rotation that needed it badly. When in doubt, add another decent arm for the bullpen as well. Kendall Graveman is that piece, also on his second tour of duty. Plus Urquidy's making his return to the rotation. The battles in the Lone Star State should be fierce, and neither will be letting up. The Rangers can't play little brother to the Astros again, can they? Never doubt Artie Moreno. Never doubt his madness and the ability to seek headlines. The Angels are in a weird position if we're being honest. They're in a no-man's land of poison pills. Shohei's impending free agency is of incredible concern. Thanks to previous foolish decisions by Artie, they can't sign him unless they want to trigger a sizable luxury tax. Logically, they'd recognize that the chances of reaching a World Series are slim with the terrible luck they've had throughout the year. But never doubt Artie Moreno. Not only is Shohei staying put for the playoff run, not only were the Angels blessed with the paper-soft schedule headed into the deadline, they will go all in on the year. They know this is all but their last great shot unless Shohei somehow manages to come back. Prove to him that you mean business. Mike Moustakas and Eduardo Escobar for the corner infield spots. CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk back home in the hitter's box. Lucas Giolito, Reynaldo Lopez, and Dominic Leone for the pitching core. Know how we're in the end times? The Angels have gone over the luxury tax threshold. Under Artie Moreno. This is truly do or die. If they fail here, it could potentially set the franchise back years. However, that's not the goal. They want the ultimate prize. Their first postseason win in the Trout era. At least if they didn't have so much bad luck this season. Will the real Seattle please stand up? No, I'm not mentioning their team performance, which goes through spurts of excellence followed by the usual fare. I'm speaking more in terms of their deadline. They sold? Yeah, Josh Rojas is an intriguing bounce-back piece, but did you have to trade your closer Paul Sewell to get him? I get they have other arms in the pen, yet the whole deadline for them was weird. They nearly traded away Teoscar as well. I figured they'd try to add a piece or two, but maybe the prices were too high for them? Maybe they feel their roster's fine as it is? Maybe they consider DFAing Colton Wong to be an upgrade? Perhaps this hot streak they've been on justifies it, I guess? Like many other divisions in baseball, the NL East has 3 teams eager to make a mark. Leading the way are, who else? The Braves. They're still the best team in baseball, but they've been around 500 since the All-Star break. At least until the Angels series, then they got a touch better. Don't expect much in terms of additions at the deadline. Most of what's done will need to be from within. Unless you count Pierce Johnson and the 2023 version of Brad Hand as upgrades. They didn't really need anything, I guess. Philadelphia, speaking of which, pleasures themselves to this news, as they're on another of their patented hot streaks. We all know how potent they can be when they get this good. Last year proved it. Do you seriously expect Dave Dombrowski to sit on his heels during a trade deadline? Have you not seen this movie before? He'll make a move that changes the dynamic of the team. Well, not a super seismic one, but he will get Michael Lorenzen for the rotation. And Rodolfo Castro is an infielder with upside. As for Miami, it appears that the torrid streak before the break has come to an end. They've fallen back to reality with a thud. However, they're still within striking distance for a wildcard spot, and they have a dire need for power. More oomph in the lineup is what the doctor ordered, and with Josh Bell and Jake Berger acquired, it should help out in that regard. Not to mention acquiring proven back-end arms like David Robertson and Jorge Lopez for the final stretch. By the way, the Gene Segura third base experiment is over. He's been exiled to Cleveland. I never expected his bat to fall off like that, though. The NL Central is a bit more of a mixed bag. There isn't anyone that's really jumped out of the pile, but the 3 teams at the top took different approaches to the deadline. First is Milwaukee. We all know what their main issue is. The only ones hitting with a dam are Yelich and Contreras. Everything else is still a work in progress or struggling mightily. It's their hope that adding Mark Canha and Carlos Santana will make magic happen in the lineup. Adding Andrew Chafin for the pen should help as well, as everything will be needed to stave off their rivals. Cincinnati is the upstart organization that strikes fear in them. They are not the Pirates, so free wins aren't allowed. That being said, they're still a young and streaky bunch. They've chosen to hold serve at the deadline instead of splurge. I understand why the Reds did this. They're in a bit of a skid and they know their time is yet to come. Buying now when they aren't ready will merely force issues down the line. Cincy will simply take their Sam Mull and focus on developing the core. The real surprise at the deadline were the Chicago Cubs. Rumors of them selling spread like the plague, especially with their excellent pitching arms. However, in several weeks, something strange happened. They revived to their winning ways after the break. They got back to 500, and then some. Cody Bellinger carrying the team on his back in an awe-inspiring return to form to charge towards the front of the pack. The Cubs have fancied themselves as competitive, and now they're finally realizing that claim. The time has come to buy, and it's a savvy, low-key one in Jeimer Candelario. He'll fill a void at third base, respectively, and hope to slingshot the Cubs back to the postseason. It'll just have to be done without Trey Mancini, though. He's been DFA'd for poor performance. Plus, Marcus Stroman's on IL for inflammation. What a shame. So you wanted to hear about the Pirates and Cardinals? They're selling off random pieces and they needed to. You should get back in the corner and think about what they've done. Many in the NL West wish to see the Dodgers fall apart. For very selfish reasons. Beating LA is the dream of many. And San Diego achieved it last season. But the Kings of the division right now have serious issues in the pitching rotation. Mainly that it's all injured or fell apart like Thor did. By the way, he's off to Cleveland for Ahmed Rosario. They need an arm or two to shore up. And they found their man. From Detroit, Eduardo Rodriguez. An excellent piece. And a much-needed southpaw to support their quest. There's only one small problem with the move. Erod doesn't want to go west. He has the Dodgers on his no-trade list. He won't budge. Trade next. struck out swinging. Well, time to scramble for Lance Lynn and Ryan Yarbrough and hope for the best. Now that's what I call a dud of a deadline. Lay out the welcome back mat for Kike Hernandez, I guess. Besides the Dodgers, the rest of the NL West went for mixed approaches. Swooping in from behind Arizona, the Giants have claimed second place. They are on a warpath. Being mocked in the offseason by the majority of the baseball world has fueled them. Securing arson judges led to a relentless burning of their opponents. At the deadline, they didn't do much, merely acquired a washed-up A.J. Pollock. But knowing the Giants' hitting lab, they'll turn him back into a 300 hitter in about 3 weeks. Don't question it, it is the law. Same as the Arizona Diamondbacks going through a roller coaster of a year. At the All-Star break, I was wondering if they would be able to keep up their torrid pace. We now know the answer to that question is a resounding no. Their July was ice cold. And that term may be putting it lightly. The team has all but collapsed, and they desperately need reinforcements. Buys at the deadline for Jace Peterson, Tommy Pham, and Paul Sewell are a last-ditch attempt to fix glaring issues, but the losing still continues. Can they fix it? They should look a touch west. The Padres seem to have done so even if they're still under 500. AJ Preller knows he's fighting for his job again, and San Diego's still considered a massive disappointment on the season. Grumblings of trading big pieces made the rounds, but they've chosen to buy at the deadline. Nothing insane, mostly Dick Mountain and Ji-Man Choi, because giving the Pirates their minor league system is apparently a fetish of theirs. There's also Garrett Cooper and Scott Barlow, so the depth is being flushed out. They'll need it since Joe Musgrove's been shut down till September. Oh dear.
You think we were just going to ignore the Mets this time? You're as foolish as those that thought this year would be different. The levels of pain in Mets land only emphasize the money being burned in effigy. Time to throw in the towel. We're selling everything that bolted down at the deadline. Scherzer and Verlander are free from this hell. Intriguing prospects in return, but the cost was in the money we burned in the process. Paying potentially $90 million to watch them pitch for other teams. Surely one of the most brutal outcomes for a season that had so much at stake. All the veterans are saying goodbye to Queens, except for the ones you hate. We're trading pieces to the Marlins of all teams. The orange and blue have gone from an all-in push to setting our sights to 2025. Truly the 1992 season redux. Another glory for Mets baseball. We are the Nets. They're actually better than us.
Ramirez on his way to second. Head first slide. Safe and in to score is Jimenez. And another hustle double. Right over the bag at first. Now Hosey and Anderson square